Hello, everyone. Welcome to our panelist discussion on Gen AI, demystifying Gen AI and hyperautomation. In today's rapidly evolving digital landscape, Gen AI has emerged as a very trendiest topic, particularly in the IT industry. However, amidst the buzz and excitement surrounding this technology, often lies a wheel of uncertainty as well as ambiguity as well. So with that, as organizations grapple with the complexities of integrating Gen AI and hyperautomation strategies, it is evident that they have to unravel certain intricacies as well as looking at the potential benefits of this technology for the organizations. So our esteemed panelists, Teddy Smoot and George Seaman, both bring a wealth of knowledge and experience in the from healthcare as well as financial services industries. And together we'll delve into the nuances of Gen AI and hyperautomation today. So I am Preetpal Singh. I lead the Intelligent Automation Business Unit at Persistent Systems. Josh?
Joshua Seaman. I've been in the Appian ecosystem for probably since 2012-13 at a couple of different firms, Janus Henderson, Oppenheimer, Invesco, and then most recently at Appian and a credit union out in California. So definitely been in the space. More change with AI, so exciting.
Thank you. Teddy?
Hi everyone, I'm Teddy Smoot. I'm a group product manager at Oscar Health. I've been with Oscar for just over 8 years, working on a variety of different operational roles, most recently currently leading in our product organization. I'm essentially responsible for transforming the business's operations, internal tooling, and bringing Appian into the ecosystem at Oscar. So it's been a pretty exciting journey, especially since Oscar is a full tech health insurer. It's one of the only in the industry, and we've been very fortunate to be able to build a lot of functionality on top of Appian, as well as now exploring AI capabilities within the tool has been very interesting and fulfilling for me in my career at Oscar, but it's also interesting to see where we can bring that technology to other use cases across the healthcare industry. So exciting to share some insights into that.
Thank you, Teddy. So in the context of hyperautomation, where these technologies are now being talked about, especially does Gen AI complement hyperautomation, or Gen AI is specifically addresses certain key limitations of automation when it comes to that? Any thoughts around it?
From my perspective, I think where it really integrates between the two is you can use AI now for things that are bridging the gap between what you couldn't previously do with hyperautomation. So there are situations where you might have had to bring a human into a particular process because they had to make a decision based on a complex set of criteria or information, especially working in health insurance and healthcare. Oftentimes you have to weed through a bunch of ambiguous information and data that is stored in various disparate data sources. And so essentially what we were leveraging hyperautomation for historically was just to queue up tasks for humans to then come in and intervene and make improvements or decision points in the process. But now where we can start to embed hyperautomation is more around helping them to make the right decisions automatically and removing the need to have the human in the loop for certain circumstances. But also you can identify key areas within your process where you want to sort of augment the decision points that are being made by your users and give them the inputs that they need in order to make a more cohesive decision based on the data that's available.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, just a real quick, maybe to poll the audience a little bit, how many people have been in this transformation automation space for maybe greater than 8 years? Okay, so a smaller group. I mean, for me, there's been so much change, and I've been around transformation probably since 2007, 8. And I remember doing process improvement was driven by pieces of paper in different colors, right? That was automation. That was Six Sigma back in the day. And if you think about the transformation that's happened, right? Appian, has definitely made me very successful at different firms along the way, as well as these guys. I've been working with Persistent for a long time as well. But we've moved forward, right? We've all dealt with RPA. We dealt with blockchain. We've dealt with, the change from automation to hyperautomation, whatever the industry analysts are going to come up with next. AI presents that interesting challenge. So if you were there, as Teddy was saying, RPA took the humans out of different things. We dealt with scared organizations at that point. People worried about jobs, things like that. And it's our responsibility as transformation executives to really, again, to use the word in the title of the session here, is demystify this. People see the news, they read about the impact that this stuff could have, but it's going to be a long journey to be able to do that. And so there would definitely be a marrying, as I think through all the different use cases that we'll talk about here in a minute, where this GenAI and hyperautomation are going to come in. And I think about all the workflows that I've built in the past and what I would do with them now. For everybody who was in the session this morning, right? Appian's Kickstart program. If you've got an older process, this is that time to leverage things like that, leverage the persistence, get to see this cool stuff happen with your organization. But it's definitely going to become a piece of it. But going too fast can definitely hurt you.
So what are the key primary drivers of integrating GenAI and hyperautomation, and how do you see these drivers coming in the near future?
Like Matt said today, data, right? We have been battling data. Everybody in this room has battled where your data is, how it presents different sets of data, the same data across the organization. This stuff is not going to work unless you're bringing your data in a place that you can use it. Financial services has been around forever. There's still mainframes sitting around. This stuff is going to be hard to use if you're having those legacy systems. You've got to get your data in the right place, whether it's inside a new database, inside of Appian, pull it together with the data fabric. But it's definitely going to have a place and an impact. But that's got to be ground level. Ground level, the data's got to be in a place that you can use it.
Yeah, and I think one of the cool things about leveraging a platform such as Appian is that you have all of those capabilities kind of at your fingertips. One of the things that was pretty illuminating for me, at least, was during the keynote, seeing all of those new AI skills that are coming to Appian. It's like all of a sudden the gears get turning in your mind around all of these new potential use cases that you can unlock with just that capability. And so what's interesting to see is how the market is evolving and adding additional capabilities, thinking of new ways to unlock potential that previously did not exist with legacy systems. And so that kind of also hypercharges the initiative to incorporate some of that functionality much more readily than if you had to start from scratch or if you had a platform that did not have AI natively integrated.
So Teddy, how will this convergence, operates the healthcare operation and the patient care? How will it transform it?
Yeah, so one of the cool things working at Oscar has been the company itself is very much an AI-forward company. As soon as AI initiatives started coming available, we immediately formed a coalition within the organization to help roll out a lot of the functionality very rapidly. And we actually were in a unique position to partner with the White House and 37 other healthcare companies and insurance companies to essentially document and deliver on what AI should look like within the healthcare space. It was a unique opportunity given the fact that Oscar has been a very tech-driven company historically. And we were able to put in place a lot of governance models that helps to ensure that there's trust in how we leverage AI within healthcare space. Obviously, you're dealing with life and death situations in some cases. You're dealing with very complex medical needs. And it's really important that the users of the AI models are able to trust in what is being produced. And so there's a lot of rigor that comes into making decisions about how we prioritize different use cases for AI within healthcare. But I think it's a very fascinating industry to be in because it does unlock a lot of potential in a previously untapped market where there's not a ton of innovation that happens within older institutions that are in the healthcare industry. And so it's really one of those once in a lifetime opportunities to leverage a brand new technology that can really bring change to a somewhat older institution.
So Josh, what are the significant changes that you see with this integration in the financial services?
So like I mentioned before, I've gone back and kind of reflected as AI has gotten more and more traction over the last 12 months about what I would have done differently in different solutions in Appian throughout the years. And in financial services, as you can think about it, it's highly regulatory, highly regulated, different processes require different things. So in the past, right, it has been about rules engines. We've all applied for loans. We've all seen the improvement with that of auto approvals based on credit scores and all that. All that stuff is just going to now jump up to be steroids, right? So two of the major use cases that I dealt with in my career were around customer onboarding, and so not you and I customers, but institutional clients, right? Big money coming in to invest in either the mutual funds or into a separate account. And there was a lot of discussion whether our firms wanted to take those clients on. And there's a scoring system that needs to happen. There's a review of their ISDA, right? Their contractual, how they're formed, who the investors are, all of those things. This GenAI stuff is going to take the people out of that process. And again, I like how Matt put it today. When RPA hit, it reminded me very similar to when RPA hit. I coined this phrase at Oppenheimer that was it said cobotics, because I was dealing with fear in the organization, right? People did not want to implement RPA. And you're going to see this with AI. You're going to see resistance from your business partners to make this transformation because there's that fear. But cobotics is the art of changing jobs and not taking jobs. So that, as Matt talked about today, is in early days, in the next 12 months to 2 years, there's going to be this kind of slow migration into AI at different firms. I love the fact that it's happening kind of in that medical space. There's a lot of forefront. From banking and financial services, it'll be a slow roll. I mean, I remember just recently, everybody kind of started to accept moving things to the cloud. There were so many other industries that were ahead of us in doing that. And with automation, it was the same thing. I know we're going to talk a little bit here in a minute about internal versus customer facing. I guarantee you financial services and banking will be doing a lot in the backhand, behind the wall, if you will, before they start rolling things out to customers, because they need to understand this themselves. Somebody was up there this morning talking about new jobs. This is going to create new jobs. I've built 2 or 3 Appian teams in my career at different firms. And we brought new types of careers. You're going to have to find people that want to reinvent themselves in financial services because all of this decisioning, KYC, know your customer, all of those decisioning type things can be done immediately with leveraging and bringing GenAI and hyperautomation together, instantaneous results. The other big one, do I have any financial services colleagues in here as well? Banking, anybody? Bueller? 1, 2, some. So the other big one that's highly regulated is political contributions. So in financial services, there's this idea of pay to play, and the SEC is the traffic cop. And when we built political contributions for the first time, we had a robot that we named Surveillance the Fourth. It was an RPA bot, and it ran for 2 days. 2 days. To go to all the state and federal websites to pull back, if you didn't know, your political contributions are public. And we pulled that information in and improved the compliance organization's time by like 5,200 hours or something like that. And that's another one that if I think about GenAI and I think about hyperautomation, that decisioning about whether that person made an incorrect political contribution based on the firm's position, that can happen instantaneously now.
And in that solution, I think initially it was only polling only 4 employees in a quarter.
They could only pull 4 people.
Yeah.
Because it took 40 minutes, I think, per person, if I remember right, 40 minutes per person. So the compliance team had to look at 4 people a quarter, and we were able to give them 2,000 employees once a month.
Yeah, I think you already called out. So, where do you think GenAI will be first, adopted, in the customer-facing scenarios, or the internal systems in the organization?
Internal. and especially in financial services. I don't know to tell you about you, but like, I think that there's going to be a lot of testing that's going on in financial services behind the scenes. A lot of it happens already. You see recommendations about how you should invest your portfolio. All of that is driven by data, right? Your age, demographic, things like that. That's AI before AI was cool, and now it's going to have an AI layer on it.
Yeah, I think for health insurance specifically, we're seeing a number of different use cases, both member or patient facing as well as internal. We started at Oscar looking at the more internal use cases. So just polling the audience, like how many people have ever had to go to a doctor and had a challenging situation understanding how much they were billing for whatever reason. Typically with a lot of these antiquated systems, it's challenging to understand how many various different inputs could go into a determination of how a claim was paid out. And so one of the things that we've done at Oscar is taken the ability for us to layer on top our data fabric and all of the insights that we have and put that through an AI, an LLM. So we're partnering with OpenAI on this and able to provide insights into our representatives on why a claim was adjudicated a certain way, what logic made the determination to either approve or deny that claim, and then automatically provide language to the representatives so that they can relay the rationale back to our members in an easy to understand way. I think just that alone has saved us dozens of hours per week in time spent wasted trying to navigate a complex SOP and understand why a thing denied or approved in the way that it did. So that's one use case. We also have some other use cases where we are leveraging document processing. So in another partnership with OpenAI, we are able to take some medical records that are submitted from providers and put that through an AI model to be able to summarize the information that's received in the medical records and provide the information that's most meaningful to clinicians when they're making a review on whether or not care was medically appropriate, for example. So even in that process, reading some of these medical records can be up to 300, 400 pages long for some of our most complex patients that we have as part of our membership. And this frees up a lot of time for the clinicians to really focus on leveraging their license in the most effective way, where it's providing care and making sound decisions for medical appropriateness versus having to dig through a ton of documentation and parse the relevant information that might be necessary.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that I wonder if it'll go away. I'm not a frequent flyer of Frontier, but you notice they got rid of their customer service call center, right? So with AI, and you think about hyperautomation, you think about call centers, I think that there's going to be a massive, massive change in organization like that. Because a bot could sit there and listen to a phone call and perform the functions. And as soon as things like that get tested, that human won't actually need to be on that phone call. Right now, there's ones that can test sentiment analysis and things like that. But imagine a robot just sitting there listening to the phone call with that representative, and the screen is just changing based on how that conversation is going, whether it's a transfer of a check, whether it's reordering new checks and things like that. But the screen in the dictionary is just sitting there changing. And then eventually the call center will have a massive change once something like that starts to test. And that's it, not industry specific. Financial services still has giant call centers depending on what you're doing. But I can see GenAI and automation, process automation coming together in a place like that within an organization and actually drive some very big change.
Now, I think I'd take this forward from the call center, which is called post-call center actions. So we created a solution called AssistX. If you happen to be in our booth, please do visit it. It's booth number 404. So you can see the live demo of that solution. It's a GenAI-based AssistX platform. What it does is that once the contact center finishes the call, the whole call gets recorded, and based on the context of that call, all the actions behind the scene have been taken up by GenAI and RPA and then get that executed. For example, if in the call it has been discussed that, oh, I have a problem with a particular product, it takes it up, create a ticket into ServiceNow, and get it processed. If it says that I want to understand, what are the new products that you are offering, it basically creates a lead into CRM automatically. So your contact center person is not finishing up the call and then manually doing all these activities behind the scene. GenAI takes it over, and then the other technologies like RPA actually gets it executed behind the scene. So it's pretty effective way of managing contact center discussions going forward. Mm-hmm. With that, can you tell us some of the prerequisites that organizations need to know of while embarking on the GenAI journey? And what are the pitfalls that they need to avoid?
Yeah, I can take that. So one of the things that Oscar's been doing is initially we set up a center of excellence for AI within the organization, and it's a coalition between our product, engineering, and data science teams to ensure that there's, and alongside of the tech side of the house, it also includes our legal, comms, et cetera. So it's a full unified approach towards how we strategically implement and communicate about AI within the organization. I think that was really foundational to ensuring that we have the right governance in place to make sure that AI is adopted successfully so that we can give the support necessary to kind of guide other folks in the organization who are interested in AI use cases in a responsible way. And then lastly, I think it was just one of the interesting things about working at Oscar is that we've had the opportunity to really brainstorm ideas of how we can improve our members' experience in navigating the healthcare space, and are able to bring that to a forum where no ideas are crazy, and you can kind of voice different opinions on how we can implement and make change within the healthcare space. And then this group is able to help make sure that we are making decisions that are responsible, that are going to be accurate when we're leveraging them in the appropriate way. So making sure we're using the right type of models, making sure we have the right type of agreements in place with partners to make sure that data is secure and it doesn't get misused in any way. I think security is another big piece, just to make sure that when you are sharing your large data sets with any external parties, that you're doing so in a way that is secure, especially not only in the healthcare space with HIPAA guidelines and making sure that patient data is safe, but also IPs. You don't want to leak any of your internal information to third parties. And one of the great things about Appian is you have the ability to use a centralized and local data integration to support AI, which has been really something that we really are interested in taking advantage of.
And especially on the data security side, you can actually anonymize your data while sending it to the LLMs. So you don't need to send the PI data to LLMs, and then once the response comes back, then you map that PI data back into the response and then, take an action or deliver that information to the users. So it's pretty well addressed, when it comes to how to manage the data through the LLMs.
Did you want to demystify LLM?
Absolutely.
What that means?
So it's large language models. I'm sure that, how many of you have already started using AI services for Appian?
There we go.
For Appian, which are there. Nice. So how is your experience around that? Can you use the mic, please? Thank you.
So we use data extraction, email classification.
Perfect.
Right. Then we have email extraction. Right. So I think so far so good. Okay. No complaints. So we have implemented for our customers. They are happy. So we are happy.
Nice.
Yeah. And one of the really amazing features that I found was the prompt builder. And that's one of the complicated thing when it comes to GenAI, but it simplifies it to a great extent. You basically tell your context the query that you want to do, and then it automatically creates the prompt from you and send it to the LLM, and then gets the response back. So that's the beauty of it. Email classification, as you said, it's, we have done, process automation for a very long time, and we know that we could able to feed the dynamic data into the email and send it through Appian before. Now we don't even need to worry about it. I mean, you just need to tell, this is the, email that I have received and I want to send a response. That email classification component automatically gathers the data for you and create the response, and you can send it directly, or you can bring in a human into the picture and say, okay, do you approve it? They approve it, and the response goes back. So
That's
it's
going to
pretty
be
neat
another
features
massive.
there.
That's going to be another massive. As you said that, it reminded me. Impact with this is being able to read and disseminate emails.
Yep.
In the back office, I'm sure each one of you guys have an operations at xcompany.com, right? And emails have been coming in there, and you've got a whole team organized to answer and responding to those. Again, the AI services inside that are being put inside of Appian will be able to do that and parse those out, and hopefully resolve them without even a human touching them.
Yeah. And we have been using records also for quite some time now in Appian, right? And we're creating some nice dashboards around those records. We're merging two records and create some nice insights on Appian. With this record chat, it takes it to a very different level. Now you don't even need to see the dashboard. You basically simply ask a question, it tells you, it relates all the data and run it through the LM and tell you what are the insights. That's a very beautiful feature, which they call it as record chat, and try and use that as well. So with that, we have an ample of time for questions. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. We can get the mic to you, and we'll, both Teddy and Josh will be happy to answer your question.
Yeah, I think I'll you jump in maybe to the pitfall thing, and Preet's probably worried that I'm going to take the rest of that 13 minutes with this, because I'm very passionate about how you approach your businesses. So are we heavy Appian already clients, prospects? All right, so we're all amongst the crowd, and so having had the opportunity to implement Appian at a couple of different firms, I can sit here and be humble enough to say that the first time sucked. And one of the things that I realized is that I was doing technology to my business groups. Teddy mentioned how many of us all have centers of excellence, right? If you think about what that means in the context of words, excellence means I have the knowledge and you don't. You need to come to me in order to fix it. So one of the things, and Joanna's here from TechCU out in California, that I worked on with Appian was really changing the way that I interface with my business. And I changed that last word to center of enablement. And it was my group's responsibility for teaching the organization, not actually doing the technology to them. And it was lights out difference between the two implementations, and they were only a year apart. We had better collaboration. Appian used to give out Legos. Anybody get a Lego? Right? Appian used to give out Legos. My business partners got those Legos. Right? I didn't do this. I didn't implement it. They implemented it themselves. So if you carry that forward, whether it's RPA, whether it's AI, I really, really encourage you to take that time to think about how you're facing off with your business. Those are scared individuals on the other side. I like to make things fun, as Preet knows. At Oppenheimer, we did bagels and bots. Preet let us borrow their robot. And the cool thing about bagels and bots was it wasn't my organization, it wasn't me standing in front of those TVs. It was my business partners talking about how they implemented a bot, and they were teaching the organization about that bot that they built. All this stuff is going to translate into the AI world. As much as you can bring them involved, because it's a major pitfall. Because as soon as something goes wrong, what happens? The fingers start to point, right? If you bring them on as a stakeholder, the better off you'll be. I have a huge passion around how this stuff gets implemented, because I messed it up the first time. And the second time, definitely, I had a much more engaged organization. Invesco came in and kind of messed that up when they acquired Oppenheimer. But a lot of those things carried forward. We did popcorn and programming. We taught people how to build bots in Automation Anywhere at that time. So just think about that while you're doing this, right? That's a pitfall if you try to go into an organization and drive change without their support.
So my question is for Teddy. Did I understand correctly that you integrated GenAI to review medical records to be able to determine if it was medically appropriate?
Not fully. So we enabled that functionality to surface up the relevant information for a clinician to make that determination. But by surfacing the relevant details of the medical records, rather than having a processor have to go through and find who is this about this member? Is it about it? Because we get a bunch of faxes with medical records. So it's able to pull out key identifying information within those records and surface that in the queue to the right person at the right time. And in addition to that, we also leveraged the LLM to enable additional capabilities for triaging the right things to the right people. So essentially, there's a bunch of information that's buried deep in those medical records, and it surfaces the relevant information to
That's a cool process. It's crazy to think that we're still faxing stuff.
Yeah, and healthcare runs on fax machines, so it's pretty great.
There's a lot of financial trades that happen via fax too still.
By chance, is it leveraging Milliman Care guidelines to provide a recommendation to the clinician?
No, we still rely on the clinicians to do that manually at this stage, but it's something that we're considering for future.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Hi. So back to the topic you brought up about call centers. So how would a company that has a call center, whatever industry it's in, whether it's financial services or something, balance the automation or hyper automation that comes with a call center with also like a human touch? Because, and I don't know if you've been caught in like an infinite loop with a bot where you end up just saying representative, please, because, you know, sometimes it's not able to get you the answer. So how would a company that has a call center, you know, innovate with, you know, a bot or an AI tool to answer these questions, but also have like a human touch in there?
Like, trust me, I have been on the other side, 0, 0, 0, 0, right? Like trying to get to the representative. I think that again, to my point just in general about Gen AI and hyperautomation, it's going to be a slow transition. You know, we have to train these things, and there has to be human intervention to understand whether that training is happening correctly. Again, you know, I was listening to Matt this morning, I just kept nodding my head because he also, I think, is echoing, just to paraphrase, is saying the same thing. Like, slow down, make sure that this stuff is accurate, but there'll be a balance. Sometimes you get caught into a bot. I just think that eventually once you hook this up to data and that training happens, those decisionings are going to happen instantaneously.
And we have actually implemented two key aspects around contact center. One is RTI and RTA. RTI is real-time insights. When the contact center is still on the call, the person is still on the call, and you know, back end the systems is pushing the data to him or insights to him to know and to understand the customer better and address their needs. And also RTA means that the bots is doing something behind the scene and sending the action to the person to look at it and then approve it, and then the action will happen. So these are kind of things that you can actually, you know, implement and take care of that human aspect and still have the human aspect in place.
Yeah, I think one of the things to kind of echo on that is there's a couple of different ways that you can optimize your call center. So you could think of it from the approach of just kind of reducing the call volume or the inbound message volume by having a bot take the place of a human is one way to do it. And that's where you run into that tricky issue of, is the bot actually behaving in the way that you would expect a human to react to some of the messages? I think there are some benefits of using large language models in that regard, because now you can understand the intent of what the user is actually portraying with their language and actually respond in a way that matches their expectations in that moment a little bit better than you could with a like predefined tree of logic that says, if they say this, then you say this. So I think that's one area. Another area that I've seen a lot of impact in is when you do have to engage with those users or customers that are calling you or whatever. The way that AI can help enable those situations is by providing a lot of additional data points to the representative as they're interacting with that person, so that they can be empowered to give the user the information that they need in a way that will make the most impact for them. So serving up the relevant data and information to them at the right time, I think goes a long way to not only improve the experience of the customers, but also to help to build trust in that relationship, because they know that when they call you, you're going to have the information about what's going on in their life cycle, which is really impactful, I think.
I think the other thing that's going to kind of further answer your question, and I'm trying to think about the right way to say this, but there's also generational things, right? So call centers started in the 80s. And I think as that demographic continues to age, I think that the next generation down or two want to be self-sufficient. They don't want that human interaction. I'll say it. They don't want that human interaction. They want the answer. And I think the less and less, I think that'll be also affect call centers as well, because the technology will be smart enough. At Oppenheimer, we were still accepting checks. And, one of the efforts that we did was start charging for that service, force that transition, right? Because I think the customer, the human touch is actually going to be how much self-service can you provide. I think that idea of that human touch or that need for that, I think that's slowly gone away. I think as much as more people become self-sufficient.
Yeah. And also, there are certain customers that we are dealing with who who have a policy of high touch, which means that they want to interact with their customers. But if you look at, even the call center operation, the actual work starts after the call. Mm-hmm. It's not when you're in the call. And that's where I'm saying that, if GenAI can come in and understand the whole conversation and then do the actions behind the scene, where the customer representative can just focus on high touch aspect of it and not really doing manual activities behind the scene and reaching out to the support group or reaching out to his sales organization and submitting certain tickets and all that stuff. So that's exactly the core use case that you can automate, from that perspective.
Officially under a minute. Is there anybody else?
Thank you.
Question was on the IVR and phone stuff. Which systems were you using to integrate with?
I can speak for Oscar. We use InContact is a company that handles our IVR. I don't have a ton of context on that, but I know that right now it's kind of separate. We don't integrate it fully with our Appian implementation probably could, we just haven't prioritized that.
I'm familiar with Contact. MoveWorks is another one that's doing stuff in that space. Very AI driven there.
I just asked because we're interested in going to AWS Connect to replace our legacy phone system, and I'm thinking that would be a nice landscape.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the method or in the process of replacing, it would definitely start to look at these AI firms. Again, MoveWorks, Persistent. Yeah, Persistent built that one that deals with the back office transactions after it gets off the phone. So I would go by the booth and at least start there, because you're still going to have those post transactions, right? As Preet said, right, the work starts after the phone call, and if that can get routed. And then the front end, I know that Appian made an attempt with the Intelligent Contact Center, but there's definitely bigger players. Again, I mentioned the MoveWork one, but the bigger players are going to start to have these AI things in there. But you're at a great spot. Yeah. Replacing now is a great opportunity.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I have a question for you. So what are the challenges you faced from your enterprise security team while implementing Gen AI, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, so I think luckily I wasn't too involved in that effort to get security on board with everything. I know we did face a lot of challenges bringing Appian within our organization, but we were able to kind of ensure that there's shared vision and trust and alignment between both tech, legal, and security. We have pretty rigorous processes to have any third-party companies that we are integrating with thoroughly vetted. I think it's making you're kind of at the behest of those companies to work with you and be able to provide audit data. Did they pass SOX audit, for example? Are they a responsible company? How are they currently securing their infrastructure? So once the security team is able to see that information when they're working with these third-party companies, it makes it a little bit easier for them to feel comfortable doing partnerships. But I think one of the biggest challenges that we've faced with just our Appian implementation is making sure that they have the right level of detail into what has gone on the Appian side to ensure that they're secure.
Cool.
And thank you, everyone. And if you want to see how to work on a multiple applications at the same time, we have a demo of that. We have a Apple Vision Pro, where you can actually open up 10 Appian applications and work on them simultaneously. So if you want to try that out, please visit to our booth. No, thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.